What's up everyone, the Game 2K2 here again, and today I continue my review of the Harry Potter franchise with the video game adaptation of The Order of the Phoenix. Well, after the Goblet of Fire's gameplay setup turned out to be a complete disaster, Warner Bros. Interactive decided to go back to the open world setup, but tweaked it quite a bit. In fact, it looks like Warner Bros. Took a few notes from Rockstar Games when it came to the open world setup. In the first three games, even though you could still roam around, only certain parts of Hogwarts were available. In The Order of the Phoenix, they changed it to where the entire school, both inside and outside, were available to roam around. In fact, the way they set up the open world environment feels like more of a family-friendly version of Rockstar Games' Bully, which was also an open world school game. The developers created the perfect copy of what Hogwarts looked like in the movies. The school is just humongous, and even after playing the game a few times, it's still very easy to get lost in this school because it's just so big. They do add a few more areas that were not in the movie. For instance, the lower level hallway where Snape's class is present in the game but was never really shown in the movies. The owlery where the owls sleep is in the game, and a bunch of floors, hallways, and passageways have been put in the game as well. Hogwarts is also much more lively than the previous games. There's a lot more students, and you can actually hear students talking to each other when you pass them. Also, to the game's credit, it does follow the story from the book and film very well, from Harry being attacked by the Dementors all the way up to the battle at the Ministry. Throughout the game, there are missions that you have to complete to progress through the story, which is pretty much the way things were set up in the first few games. However, with the newly altered open-world environment, you don't have to do the missions. You can just explore Hogwarts if you want. However, chances are you will not want to explore Hogwarts too much, and this is where we get into the game's huge pile of flaws. One thing the game lacks when compared to other open-world games is side missions. The only side missions they created for this game was Harry fixing and cleaning things throughout Hogwarts by using spells. That's it. This is the most boring side mission I have ever played, and it's sad that it's the only side mission that there is. With a school this big, there should be plenty to do. And unfortunately, like the movie, the game has no Quidditch, which would have been a fun addition and would have saved this element of the game. And that's another problem with the game. Hogwarts is just way too big. The game runs at about 5 hours long if you're not one for roaming around. However, the game would be loads shorter if the school wasn't the size of a full-blown city. The main missions of the game in the school take forever and require a lot of backtracking. This is because the mission will start you off at one end of the school and require you to go to the other end, and most of the time to finish the mission you have to go back to where you started. This wouldn't be a problem if you were allowed to do more than jog throughout Hogwarts. I'm serious, you can't even run faster, and there's no transportation in the game. The developers weren't even nice enough to put broom flying in this game. One tiny mission can take more than 10 minutes at times, and most of the 10 minutes you're just jogging to where you have to go, and when you finally get to your destination, the task will most likely only take a few seconds, which makes that 10 or more minutes seem entirely pointless. Also, when it comes to the main missions, there's really only a few battles in the game. There's a few battles with Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, and then of course the battle at the Ministry. I don't really care for any of the battles because there's really nothing strategic about them. They're really more repetitive than anything else. All it is throwing spells back and forth over and over and over again. Even the final battle with Voldemort and Dumbledore is just throwing spells back and forth, which is really a letdown. Another flaw with the game is the way it helps you to get to where you're going. Instead of being nice and just putting an arrow on top of the screen like any normal game, it puts footsteps on the ground that lead you to where you're going. This would be nice, but there are a few problems. For one, the steps are black, so if you're in a dark area, you're not going to see them at all. Another problem is when you're going up and down the changing steps, because not only are they tough to see on steps, but disappear when the steps change. And my biggest complaint is that they are so damn slow. You're only lightly jogging in this game, and yet you have to keep starting and stopping because you're constantly outrunning the damn things. Then there was the spell system, and to the developers' credit, they actually did have a clever scheme. They incorporated the analog sticks into the spell system, and to perform a specific spell, you would have to move the analog stick in a certain fashion. Like you might have to move it up twice to do a spell, or down twice to do another spell. This actually works quite well. I just wish the spell system was actually useful in the game. I'm not kidding. Besides the Reparo charm, you can only use the others on a couple occasions after you've learned them, which really sucks because, like I said, they had a clever idea, but they don't use the idea enough in the game. Also, I'm a little disappointed that Hogwarts is the only place you can explore when in the open world mode after you've completed the game. because the game takes place in a few different areas other than Hogwarts, and you can't access any of them when the game is over. This makes the game's replay value even worse. I think it would have been cool to explore Sirius's house and the Ministry. However, one impressive smaller feature is the ability to go into a secret area of the school and unlock videos showing the development and the behind-the-scenes interviews for the game with both the developers and the cast from the movies, which is a cool feature and is one feature I enjoy from the game. Graphically, the game looks very impressive on all versions. In fact, there's not a whole lot separating the newer consoles and the older consoles in terms of visuals, which is quite rare. The one noticeable difference is that the 360, PS3, and PC versions do have a little more detail to them, and the environments are a little more three-dimensional, while the PS2 and GameCube versions have a few more areas that are a little more flat and the details aren't quite as good. For instance, if you look really closely, you'll see that there are a few more pictures on the wall on the newer consoles as compared to the older consoles. And the colorization is much better on the newer consoles as well, but that's a small problem. Another tiny flaw with the older consoles, and it is tiny, is the frame rate. You'll notice a lot of jumps when you're running, and the battles in the game are unbelievably jumpy. Also, the cutscenes are better on the newer consoles, but that's not even a flaw because the cutscenes are only meant to tell the story, so that doesn't matter at all. Overall, it was a great idea with horrible final results. The game is unbelievably boring with uneventful gameplay and too many ideas that aren't fully realized. Well everyone, that's it for now. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.